Now, at the heart of the dramatic collapse of Germany's three-party coalition government is, of course, the economy, as we've been discussing. And from our business desk, Yuka Royer is here to dive even deeper into the business reasons and the economic reasons behind this collapse.
Well, Charlie, Germany, of course, is the largest economy in the Eurozone, but it's been struggling to recover from the pandemic and the Russian energy crisis that affected its manufacturing sector. GDP is set to contract for a second straight year. As he handed a certificate of dismissal, Germany's president thanked Christian Lindner, who was sacked as finance minister by Chancellor Olaf Scholz. President Steinmeier also appointed Scholz's economic advisor, Jörg Kukies, as his successor. Lindner's exit followed weeks of talks to try and fix Germany's ailing economy. His pro-business Free Democrats party rejected tax increases and any changes to the country's strict restrictions on borrowing. Chancellor Scholz's Social Democrats and Economy Minister Robert Habeck's Green Party wanted to relax the rule on government debt in order to plug holes in next year's budget and invest more into accelerating a clean energy transition.
We have a geopolitical situation that makes economic and fiscal planning very difficult, especially after the US election. It makes it very, very difficult to forecast how things will continue economically, with tax revenues and with the expenditure that the state has to make. That is why we've made various proposals that have increased the flexibility of the budget.
The political feud centred on Germany's self-imposed limit to borrowing called the debt brake that forces balanced budgets. Now enshrined in the country's constitution, it can only be suspended in exceptional circumstances, as Brian Quinn explains.
At the heart of the political crisis that has shattered Germany's governing coalition, its constitutional debt brake, a law opponents say greatly limits the country's ability to pursue constructive policies.
What we need to do is lift the debt brake to invest in our European security, support Ukraine, and strengthen it to continue the fight to secure our freedom.
Introduced in 2009 under then-Chancellor Angela Merkel, the debt brake was in part a reaction by fiscal hawks to the sovereign debt crisis that racked Europe in the wake of the 2008 global financial meltdown. It stipulates that the budgets of the national government and of its federated states shall, in principle, be balanced without borrowing. The federal government is normally allowed an exception of just over 0.33% of GDP. Under the late German finance minister Wolfgang Schäuble, Germany's federal budget was balanced from 2014 to 2019, an achievement dubbed Black Zero. But starting in 2020, the German parliament suspended the debt brake, borrowing hundreds of billions of euros to face the economic fallout from COVID-19 and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In November of last year, Germany's top court ruled that unused COVID recovery funds could not be used for green energy transition plans, blowing a €60 billion hole in the government's budget. Most economists consider at least some deficit spending to be a linchpin of macroeconomic policy, especially when stimulus programs are needed to pull a country out of recession. Though still Europe's top economy, German GDP is set to contract in 2024 for the second year running.
Well, markets generally hate uncertainty, but they seem to have welcomed the political upheaval this time and the prospect of an early election in Germany. As one analyst put it, it's better to have a horrible end than to have horror without end. Now, German stocks rose sharply this Thursday, pushing Frankfurt's DAX up 1.7% up the close. Paris's CAC 40 also finished with gains. London ended in the red after the Bank of England cut its benchmark interest rate to 4.75%, Charlie.
Yuka, bad news for the Japanese car giant Nissan as well, in deepening bigger trouble. What's going on?
Big financial trouble there for Nissan. It cut its annual profit outlook for the second time this year on Thursday, saying net profits for the April to September period declined by a staggering 93.5% compared to the same period last year. It lowered its profit outlook for the whole fiscal year by 70%, from about €3 billion to just €900 million. The company is in emergency mode following weak sales in China and the United States, both crucial markets for the car maker. The reason? Electric cars. It's been unable to compete against rivals like BYD in the Chinese market and has totally missed the hybrid and plug-in rally in the United States. Unlike Toyota and Honda, Nissan has no hybrid offerings in its lineup there. The car maker says it will cut 9,000 jobs, or more than 6% of its global workforce, slash production capacity by 20%, and let go of a portion of its stake in Mitsubishi Motors. Chief Executive Makoto Uchida is also giving up half his salary for the foreseeable future. Charlie.
Here in France, Yuka, as many as 38 town halls closed their doors this Thursday to protest a drastic belt tightening demanded by the government. Tell us more.
Well, Prime Minister Michel Barnier is seeking to save some 60 billion euros in next year's budget to bring deficit down to 5% of GDP. 2/3 of that should come from spending cuts, including from local governments. Regional officials, though, say that the drastic cuts imposed on them will put impossible pressure on public services. Emily Boyle and our colleagues at France Télévisions have this report.
Whilst budget discussions continue in Paris, local mayors are protesting against the 5 billion euros worth of savings the government is asking of their administrations.
We've already saved a lot of money and we will keep saving. For instance, I've decided that we will not make any new hires in 2025, and that saves a lot of money.
We can understand that we need to increase our saving efforts considering the state the country is in, even if we are not responsible, but not so brutally and not in such proportions, and especially not without dialogue.
As a symbol of their discontent, 38 town halls have exceptionally closed their doors. Locals are surprised, but support the movement.
I can understand that there might be problems, so I'll come back tomorrow.
The local mayor says that these budget cuts will cost them hundreds of thousands of euros.
Our functional budget is impacted, our management of daily affairs will be significantly impacted, and also our projects that were planned to develop our town's future.
On Tuesday, elected leaders of another region also protested in the local square against the spending cuts they will have to administer. Local road maintenance workers were concerned for their futures.
If these cuts go ahead, then all the projects we have developed with local authorities will fall through.
Prime Minister Michel Barnier's plan to reduce national debt involves spending cuts which could cost local authorities up to 11 million euros each.
So tough times ahead for local governments here in France as well, with the belt tightening that's required of them.
Yuka Royer from our business desk, bringing us the top business stories we need to keep our eyes on. Thank you so much. Next up, the Australian